Okay. Really quick, as I'm admitting people, can someone let me know if you guys can hear me okay? Can someone unmute themselves real quick and let me know if the video is coming through? Oh, I got the chat. Okay.
We can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. Okay. Well then, as I'm kind of letting people in, I'll just introduce myself. I'm Alyssa. And if there's anyone who hasn't joined any Girls Love to Fly ground sessions previously, I'm a flight instructor for Girls Love to Fly in the actual physical flight school in Sacramento. And then I also work for basically like a college program to instruct for that. So cool. I'm really excited to get started and talking about weather. And also before I get started, I wanted to hear kind of where everybody is in their training right now. There's a lot of new faces that I haven't seen before. So if you want to type in the chat or unmute yourself. Okay. I'll give you guys a second while I'm setting up my screen sharing. Um, let's see here. Instrument training. Okay, Nicole, that's awesome. Um, this will probably be very relevant for instrument training. I know that for my CFI check ride and my CF double I check ride, I got a ton of questions about like how to figure out the cloud ceilings, and freezing levels is a big one for instrument with icing. So hopefully this will be relevant for you. Um, but let me go ahead and share my screen. And if anyone else wants to chime in and say where you're at in your training. Okay, cool. I got my slides up. Are you guys able to see my slides on my screen here? Okay, cool. Oh, awesome. I just saw Sylvia, you are a new member and you are just getting started with the knowledge. Okay, awesome. That is a good start that you are already attending these ground schools so early on. So hopefully this will be really good information. So it'll start to make sense once you actually like go into it with your training. Um, okay, can everyone confirm that you can see my screen on my presentation? Oops, we got a new present or oh, still letting people into the meeting. Okay, awesome. Thank you, Sylvia. I just got your thumbs up. That's really helpful. Um, awesome. Thank you. It's so annoying when I share my screen, I have to like friendly. Also Zoom decided to update as I was starting the meeting. So that's why I was like a minute late. So thanks for your patience here. Um, anyways, okay. So today we are going to go over basically weather information. So how to get weather forecasts and different types of weather information that's available to us. I was going to go more into like actual weather theory. Um, Oops, okay, I just saw someone else came into the waiting room. Yeah, I was gonna go into weather theory for this ground school, but that is like a whole nother chunk on its own. And this, if you guys want to do another Zoom ground school on weather theory instead of like how to get weather information and understand it, please let me know. But anyways, today I was going to go over weather briefings. So how we can get like official weather briefings, as well as individual weather products, and what weather products are like forecasts, which weather products are observations of what's currently happening, and what weather products are you can get updates in flight. So to start with, I'm going to go over already like done their private pilot training. I don't know if your instructor has ever taught the NW craft acronym. I know I've gone over it in previous ground schools, but it's basically NW craft is the acronym that is every pre-flight action that you need to make as a flight instructor. Or sorry, not as a flight instructor, as the pilot in command, going on a cross-country flight or flight not in the vicinity of the airport. So NW craft, or your required pre-flight information that you need to receive, is NOTAMs, weather, um, sorry, NOTAMs, weather, oh my gosh, known ATC delays, right? The craft is a K. Are, oh my gosh, it has been such a long day. NOTAMs, weather, known ATC delays, runway lengths at your airport that you're intending on going would be your alternate. F would be your fuel burn, and T would be your aircraft's takeoff and landing performance. Oops, I'm letting someone else in. So anyways, that NW craft acronym, a lot of what it encompasses is covered in a pre-flight weather briefing. And because it's actually written in the FAR-AIM of like what your legal responsibility is to do a cross-country flight, what pre-flight weather you need to receive, or that you need to receive this information. I tend to go towards weather briefings or talking to a weather briefer and getting a comprehensive weather briefing from someone or an official website. That way you get a receipt that you did go through and get a full weather briefing. So we'll go more into how to receive one in a second, but basically what a weather briefing encompasses is, as the slide says, adverse conditions, if they will recommend. So if you've ever gotten a weather briefing, they will say if they won't tell you if it's going to be VFR, but if it's going to be IFR, they will say VFR flight is not recommended. And that should be a pretty big red flag if you're intending to go VFR. They'll give you a synopsis, so like an overview of what the weather is at your en route and destination, and your current conditions, if you are getting your weather briefing within 2 hours of your estimated departure. And then also a really nice part of the NOTAMs and ATC delays, or that last part of that weather briefing, is the NOTAMs and ATC delays are part of that NW craft acronym that is part of what you need to know before going on to a cross-country flight. So it's nice that a weather briefer or a online weather briefing will go in over that as well, so you don't have to like go hunt and find it somewhere else. So that's why I like getting like official weather briefings. It's a little more comprehensive, but I will go into how to decipher individual forecasting tools as well. So going a little bit more into weather briefings. So this might be review for some of you guys that have already gone through your private pilot training, but there's 3 types of weather briefings. One is standard, so covers everything that I just went over. I just got something saying that my internet is unstable. Can you guys hear me okay? You can give me a thumbs up. Okay, awesome. So I would recommend getting a standard weather briefing. So we'll go into later how you can request a standard weather briefing, but that's usually the default. An Outlook briefing is if you're like the day before, for example, trying to call and figure out like a general no or no go or go decision. Um, but then I would recommend if you get an Outlook briefing, calling back again or checking again, getting a standard briefing. And then an abbreviated briefing is just like if, for example, you were having a oh, just got someone else in the waiting room. Okay. An abbreviated briefing would be like, for example, if your flight was delayed, or there was rapidly changing weather and you wanted to get any updates to a standard briefing. So those are your options. I would still recommend always getting a standard briefing to cover your butt, to show that you did your due diligence with your weather briefing, but also you want the most comprehensive information. So there's a couple of ways to receive a weather briefing. If anyone wants to like say in the chat or unmute themselves, has anyone actually called a weather briefer?
Yeah.
Cool. Did you have a pretty good experience?
Yeah, it was very helpful. A veteran CFI of mine who'd been flying longer than I was alive, he said they're so friendly and they're just waiting to help. And he was right. They were super helpful. And like you said, they didn't say don't go. They gave me enough to decide it's not a good idea. So because I'm only VFR.
Perfect. Yeah, that's great that you have that experience to talk about. So yeah, it's not like they'll be like harsh or like rude and say like don't go, but they'll like lay out the details on a very like unbiased. Um,
Yeah.
they are required to tell you if it's not going to be, but they are very friendly in my experience. Awesome. So yeah, there's a couple of ways to receive a weather briefing. One would be calling the 1-800-WX brief phone number. And then they have like a couple, like they have to figure out what state you're from. So you'll probably go to like an automated answering message. But then they'll ask you a couple questions. You'll ask for a standard briefing, and they're very helpful. One thing about calling a weather briefer is I recommend to my students to fill out a VFR flight plan form ahead of time. So if you go onto like if you Google Jeppesen Navlog, I think they have like a VFR flight plan form. I think the more official VFR flight plan form is called an I, they call it an ICAO flight plan form, but it's spelled ICAO. And if you can find a PDF and fill that out when you're asking for a weather briefing, that will help you follow the prompts that the weather briefer will ask you. The other way to get a weather briefing is going online and using the Leidos Flight Service website and just following their prompts. My personal favorite way to get a weather briefing is by first using ForeFlight. And I'll show you how to do that in the next slides. But I will first use ForeFlight because they have a really helpful weather briefing tool where it's like super easy to understand weather charts. So then I'll have an idea of what's going on. And then if I have any questions, or I'll go ahead and follow through by calling a weather briefer. So I'll use ForeFlight first, see if I have any like weird red flags popping up. And then I will call a weather briefer and ask them questions because they're a human. So if there's any ambiguity, I'll do that. And then there's also aviationweather.gov. They just like redid their website. Oops, someone said something in the chat. That's funny. Sherry, are you on Space Mountain Ride? Anyways, another tool that I'll use is aviationweather.gov. It's not technically like a full briefing service. Like there's no receipt that you received a full weather briefing if you use aviationweather.gov, but they do have a lot of tools to receive like individual forecasting. Cool. Does anyone have any questions so far? Also, if anyone has ForeFlight and hasn't figured out how to do a weather briefing through ForeFlight, so starting on the top left, you would type in your like route or your destination, and then you would hit edit, and then you hit that little on slide two, you would hit this little export tab, and then you hit flights. So you hit export and then send to flights. And then under flights, you hit briefing and it'll generate a briefing for you, which has like a really nice, easy to digest set of like, I guess they're just very aesthetically pleasing and easy to understand weather forecasting tools. And it goes
Yeah.
through kind of the process of like showing you METARs, TAFs, PIREPs, NOTAMs, which we'll go into in a second. Sorry, I think someone was going to say something. What was that? No. Okay. Sorry, I think I just cut somebody off. But um, so now that I went into how to receive a weather briefing, now I'll go more into like tools to like individual tools to forecast certain weather conditions. So before it was like the weather briefing goes through all of this, but if you want to look at individual tools, these are all super helpful. Um, so we'll go more into all of these, but we have forecasts and observations. So all of these on this slide are things that forecast weather, and then I'll go into how we can see what's currently happening. I think I got someone on this. Oh, okay. So the TAFs are terminal aerodrome forecasts. And I'm sorry if this is like review for a lot of you guys that are working on your instrument. But terminal aerodrome forecast TAFs are, like they said, terminal. So they're for like a small 5 mile radius around a certain airport. And one thing to note is that not all airports will have TAFs or terminal aerodrome forecasts. Usually only like the larger airports will have TAFs. So like, for example, I train out of like a smaller airport. So I'll look at nearby airports TAFs. Um, and they are released for 24 or 30-hour time periods and updated every 6 hours. So it's kind of a pain. If you have like rapidly changing weather, sometimes I'll like look at when the TAF is released to make sure that I'm not looking at a TAF that's like 5 hours old. Um, and then a lot of people I know they're like not the most user friendly as far as reading, but they do follow the same format every time. So it'll be airport issue time, valid period, wind. And actually, does anyone want to try to read this one before I try to read it? The JFK one on the slide. Are there any volunteers?
No.
Okay. Oh, okay. This might be dry, so I'll just do the first line. But okay, so starting, I'm if you guys can see my cursor. So this will be a TAF for JFK. I actually screenshot it on my flight yesterday. Um, so it's saying that this TAF was released on the 12th day of the month. Oh, wait. Why am I? Oh, sorry, backwards. It was yesterday. So it was the first day of the month at 23:20 Zulu. So yesterday was April 1st. So that was the issued time. And then it's
Okay.
the time. What was that?
Sorry, I just said okay.
Okay, so next would be the valid time in Zulu. I like the engagement. Thank you. Okay, really confusing. You'll sometimes see like P6 statute miles. The P means, I think it means plus. It just basically means that there's greater than 6 statute miles visibility. I don't know why they don't just put actual plus 6 miles or why six is so significant. um, and then it's saying clouds are broken at 6,000 feet. And then the new line is from the second day of the month, so April 2nd today at 1200 Zulu. The winds will be from 060 at 7 knots, more than 6 miles visibility. And then the minus means light. So it'll be light rain. Clouds are scattered at 2,500 feet and overcast at 5,000 feet. Does anyone know what kind of cloud coverage counts as a ceiling? We'll check our question. Oh, I see you opening up the book. No pressure. Anyways, while she's figuring that out, one thing I wanted to point out, which this might be not new information for anyone here, but if you see here what says 15G 24 knots, that would be if it's 15 gusting 24 knots. And then where it says overcast at the bottom where my cursor is, this would be 600 instead of 6,000 feet. So you would just add 2 zeros. Some other weird things are, does anyone know what BR means on a tab? No.
Does it mean baby rain? I mean mist?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's funny. I use that to remember it too. So BR, which I see a lot right now when we have a lot of precipitation, BR means mist. So that might be a reason for the low visibility. Okay. No pressure. Did you figure it out, Neej? Or sorry if I'm not pronouncing your name right. The ceiling? No. Oh, I think you need to unmute yourself. Oh,
There we go.
okay. Did you figure
Yeah,
it
okay.
out?
Sorry. So, was that the question relating to like the 3/8, 1/8, 0/8, like 7/8? Is that the cloud cover?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh my gosh, sorry. Yeah, so that's completely, it's relating to that. And then like the 3/8 relates to a certain
It,
ceiling,
okay.
which,
It's
oh
saying
my gosh, it's been
3/8.
so long, I don't remember.
I know, I
But
have to look back.
um,
But overcast is 8 out of 8 at clouds. Like it's full coverage.
yeah, so that's how ceiling. Um, Few does not count as a ceiling. I think it's basically anything greater than or broken or greater counts as a ceiling. So if you're
Yeah.
like when you're looking into instrument flying, if it's saying like ceilings are reported at 6,000 feet, there might be like some little puffy clouds that don't count as part of that ceiling. So it's good to know. It might be a good like check ride question.
Not
But
that
no,
you,
good. You found that so fast.
well, I remember
What was that?
studying it. It was 5/8 to 7/8 is broken. Not that you need to know that, but
Oh, that is good to know. Yeah, so you can kind of like visualize how many clouds that is. Um, so anyways, moving on. There's a lot of weather theory on prog charts that I might go into. 5/8 to 7/8 is broken. Cool. Um, a lot of weather theory going on this chart. But basically, prog charts or prognosis charts are forecasts that come out in 6 hour intervals, and they just show overall what weather systems are happening. So I don't necessarily use prog charts or prognosis charts for like details of like what's going to happen at a specific airport. But because they go out, I want to say for aviation prog charts, they go out for like 7 days at a time. They are very useful for trying to gauge like if like, for example, a cold front will come through. We might be expecting more like stormy weather. Um, so yeah, the prog charts I use to look out. If I want to look out like 7 days in advance, that might give me like a general ballpark idea if there might be bad weather. And then I'll go ahead and use the TAFs to kind of follow up and get more detailed information. One other thing that I didn't go over, but ForeFlight has this thing called the MOSs, or I think it stands for Model Output Systems. Does anyone ever use those? Okay, well, ForeFlight under the weather tab has something called an MOS or a model output system. And I like to use those a lot too. They're not quite as official as the TAFs, but I think that they're updated a little more frequently and they have the same information as the TAF. Or they cover the same information. So like cloud coverage, winds, that kind of thing. Okay. Does anyone have any questions about this prog chart before I move on? I know there's a lot going on.
That's accurate about Florida.
Yeah, that's very true. I saw that you guys were getting bad weather. Some quick notes. I know that this might be review for a lot of you guys, but like, for example, it's good to tell if there's going to be strong winds. I'm looking at Florida now to see if Florida has strong winds. But more like in the north where my cursor is, you can see that these lines are called isobars. They're really, really close together. And isobars show areas of equal atmospheric pressure close together. It means that there's a steep pressure gradient. And because pressure likes to move from high pressure to low pressure, this little area where the isobars are really close together, it means that you can expect strong winds. Some other like lesser known things about these charts are these orange areas. Like we're all the way, there's actually a lot going on in the US right now, but it means pressure trough. So these like orange dashed lines are pressure troughs, and that means an extended area of low pressure. Usually means kind of like muggy weather. And then this red is thunderstorms. What is the weather at Florida right now?
I think thunderstorms are coming tomorrow.
Okay.
I think that's right. You know,
That
it changes every day. So let me look.
I think I screenshot this yesterday and it was for April 4th. So this might be what's gonna hit you.
Yeah, tomorrow is supposed to be rain. So
Um, and then I know me in California, this is for Thursday, April 4th. And I know that we're going to get a lot of little storms hitting, which makes sense because it looks like there's a cold front coming through, which might with a lot of precipitation. So we might actually be seeing some thunderstorms as like the cold air lifts. Um, but cool, exciting. I just went to Florida for the first time for women in aviation. Okay. So
oh,
then you went. Okay. So we have air mets next. So air mets are forecasts of weather that could be hazardous to light aircraft or like general aviation aircraft. Usually like the airlines are heavy enough or technically advanced enough where air mets won't affect them as much, but they're still good to look at. Another thing to note is that air mets usually cover like very wide areas, like not specifically like one airport. So what I use the air mets, actually ForeFlight has a really cool feature if you look on the tabs for air mets, where you can like select layers and it's really easy to see exactly where it is and to click on it and get more information like I have down below. But air mets I use for figuring out like big picture what's going on. So then if I see an air met, I know it's like a red flag, and then I'll use the TAFs or the model output systems to get more detailed information. I know I saw that there is an instrument pilot here and or trying to get your instrument rating. And I use the air mets a lot for figuring out like icing situations. So air mets are issued every 6 hours, but if there's rapidly changing weather, they might update them sooner than 6 hours. And there's three different kinds of air mets. There is air met Sierra, which would be IFR or instrument conditions or mountain obscuration. I like to remember air met Sierra as IFR or mountain obscuration by thinking of like the Sierra Nevada mountains. I'm sure a lot of people think of this the same way, but air met Tango is super easy to remember. It is for turbulence, but it can also encompass strong surface winds or wind shear. So T, Tango, turbulence, super easy to remember. And then air met Zulu is for icing and low freezing levels. And it's easy to think of Z for the Zulu as like temperatures being 0 or freezing, how it has like a Z in it. But I really like using air mets for flight planning. Like if I have passengers that I know really hate turbulence, I'll kind of use that and see it as like maybe that would not be a good time to come to take them up. But also for instrument flight planning, like if I know that there's IFR conditions and I'm planning on filing IFR, but I see an air met Zulu coming out, I might have to go back and like really pay attention to the freezing levels, or second guess my flying because general aviation aircraft don't do well in ice, as you've probably learned. Um, so then air mets are, I'd say, think of them as like red flags, but SIGMETs are more of things that are like dangerous to all aircraft. Um, so there's two types of SIGMETs, which I'll go into. There's convective SIGMETs, which are related to thunderstorms, and then SIGMETs, which are just severe activity, not related to thunderstorms, but are hazardous to all aircraft. So SIGMETs are issued whenever like other weather forecasting is like scheduled. SIGMETs are issued more so like just when they happen and they last for 4 hours, except for some reason hurricanes. Hurricanes I think last for 6 hours. But SIGMETs encompass severe icing, severe turbulence, and dust storms and sandstorms, as well as volcanic ash. I actually last week in California, or maybe 2 weeks ago, we received our first SIGMET for severe turbulence, and that was interesting. Have any of you guys seen any SIGMETs around your area? Okay. Yeah, so SIGMETs, usually if you have like severe icing, severe turbulence, it's usually more of a convective SIGMET, so more associated with the thunderstorms. But I have also seen them for like dust storms. Okay. So here's an example of a convective segment. It was actually yesterday. It looked like there was a active thunderstorm going on. And this is just, I took screenshots of the ForeFlight overlays so you guys can see what that looks like. But convective segments are for thunderstorms that have surface winds greater than 50 knots, hail greater than 3/4 of an inch, tornadoes, lines of thunderstorms, embedded thunderstorms, and heavy precipitation. I think the P hack says when there's heavy precipitation over like 40% or more of a 3,000-mile area. It's like very specific. um, but they are issued every 55 minutes and can be updated at any time. And I use these a lot also for instrument flying because if I see like I'm flying through clouds and I don't know if these clouds are, or I like see that there's puffy clouds and I'm like, okay, are these clouds going to be like turning into convective? I'll go ahead and look at sigmets and see if there's any like thunderstorms that they're expecting that day. And I'm sure as a lot of your CFIs have like hammered into you, thunderstorms are very bad for aircraft. And especially if there's a convective sigmet issued for an area, usually those are like multiple cells of thunderstorms and they can move very, very quickly. So I would just, if you see a convective sigmet, that would be an instant like no-go decision for me. If it's like in the region that you're planning on flying. Okay, does anyone have any questions so far? I know I'm kind of going fast. Okay. Cool. So then last forecast that I'm going to discuss is going to be winds and temperatures aloft. And I use these for instrument flying to figure out if there's going to be freezing levels. But then I also use winds and temperatures aloft charts to figure out what the winds are going to be so that I can do flight planning. So if you guys remember doing like nav logs, where you're trying to figure out if you have a headwind or a tailwind, so you know if you're going to get to your destination quicker or not. So this is kind of a ugly looking winds and temperatures aloft chart that I chose. If you go through the ForeFlight briefing, there's a much prettier version of the winds and temperatures aloft chart. But I think I took this screenshot off of aviationweather.gov. So one thing to note about winds and temperatures aloft is that these are all winds that are in true north, and they're in Celsius. And not every airport will be reporting winds and temperatures aloft. It's kind of like TAFs, where usually only the bigger airports are reporting. And they come out for once every 3,000 feet. There will be a reporting for what the winds and temperatures will be. So if you see under the 3,000-foot column, if it's blank here, it means that that airport is above 3,000 feet AGL, so they couldn't get a. So how you would read this, which I know that this comes up on some knowledge tests. So let's say for 9,000 feet. Oh gosh, now it's testing me. I haven't done this in a while, but for 9,000 feet at this BIH airport, the winds would be coming from 280 at 12 knots, and the temperature is 4 degrees Celsius. And then it starts to get a little funky once you get into the flight levels or like really high up. I'm trying to find an example of one. Oops, let me go back. So if you see any that are, anyways, oh, if you see, okay, I don't know if, I know it's in really small print, but if you look at the OTH airport at 34,000 feet, where my cursor is, I know it's really confusing because like the wind direction shows 780, which makes no sense because that's not a direction. It's basically to let us know that the temperature is a negative and the wind speed is in the hundreds. So super confusing. I don't know why they did this, but the 780, you want to basically subtract 5 from the 7. So the wind would be coming from 280, and then you would add a 1. So as you go higher up in altitudes, the winds get stronger. So it's assumed that here with this 7, the winds would be in the hundreds, and then the temperatures would be in the negatives. So once again, this is super confusing. Maybe look this up later, but here I would read it as it would be wind from 280 at 102 knots and negative 46 degrees. If anyone wants to try to read, let's see. Does anyone want to try to read this one where my cursor's over to try to decode that? Okay. I'll go ahead and do it one more time. It's so confusing. Once again, this only comes into play if you're looking at the winds and temperatures aloft, like really, really high up where they start to get really high winds. But this one from where my cursor is, it would be winds at 280. Once again, we subtract a 5 at 112 knots and negative 58 degrees Celsius. Once again, if you go into ForeFlight, it's a little bit easier to read, but this is, I believe, from the Aviation Weather Center or aviationweather.gov. Okay. So now I went over all of the weather forecasting information. Now I'll go ahead and go into weather observations. So what currently, I just got someone in the chat. So weather observations would be like what's currently happening. So I use this all the time as a flight instructor. If I'm like trying to figure out if I want to go to a certain airport, or if I'm like on the ground with a student, they're at the airport, and I'm trying to make a go or no go decision, I'll look at all of these things. So I'll start with METARs. So METARs are the most similar to like your ATIS, AWOS. Super easy. They have like a METAR tab on ForeFlight or aviationweathercenter.gov. And then when you get a flight briefing, they'll also go over the METARs. So it's an observation of what is currently happening at like a specific airport area. So usually like once again within like a 5-mile radius of the airport. And then the format is pretty similar to a TAF. One thing to note is that sometimes they'll have like species, which is a form of METAR, which is basically an update to like if there's really rapidly changing weather, they'll issue a specie, which is an amendment to a METAR. So I believe METARs usually come out every 55 minutes past the hour, but if there's really rapidly changing weather, they'll issue a specie and update the METAR that came out. Okay, I would ask you guys if anyone wants to try to read this METAR. I'll give you guys like a couple seconds if anyone wants to volunteer. Okay, so I'll go ahead. Oh, do we have a volunteer?
I can try it, I think. Sorry, can you hear
Alyssa, is
me?
that you? Other
Yeah,
Alyssa, do you
hey.
want to try? Okay, good.
Hey.
Yeah, I can hear you just.
Okay, cool.
Oh,
So
hi. Oh my gosh.
hi. How's it going?
If
Okay,
if you
so sorry,
Oh, I was just
can
saying if you mess up, like no worries. I'm just proud of you for volunteering.
okay, I'm trying. I was like I'm pretty rusty, but okay, so that's the METAR for that airport, and it is on the second day going to the fourth. Or no, I'm sorry, on the second day at 0453 Zulu.
Uh-huh.
It's automated, so that means that there aren't people there that are putting this meter out. Is that right?
Yeah. It's
Okay,
like
cool. So sorry,
human.
like a machine, or yeah, it's basically a robot. Okay,
Yeah.
so the winds are coming from 180 with 13 knots, gusting 20.
Uh-huh.
I think that's right. Okay, cool. So the visibility is 10 statute miles. Um, the sky is clear and the temperature is 23 and the dew point is 18 and
Uh-huh.
the altimeter is 2970. And the remarks are there's precipitating or like precipitating or precipitation sensing
Yep.
something, right? Something. Oh, two. Okay. And then so the rain
Yeah.
ended at two. No, sorry. Maybe that's not rain ended.
No, you're right. It's rain ended, I believe, at 200 Zulu. Yeah.
Okay,
And
cool.
then if you
Nice.
want to go,
Okay. The sea level pressure is 053. It's it remind me what the P is again. Is that it's greater than or call?
it's greater than, but I think that the rest of this might have been, I could be wrong, but I think that's like more from a military station. I might have like
Yeah,
screenshot
yeah.
the
Okay.
military airport. So that's why you get all those weird
Okay.
numbers at the end. But yeah, no, that was really good.
Okay.
Good
Thank
job.
you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, that was smooth. So yeah, there's a couple other things to note. I pay attention to the temperature dew point spread. If it's like close together, like specifically at night where you know the temperature is gonna drop, um, you'd be concerned about like fog or low clouds if the temperature reaches the dew point. So that's something I pay attention to. Another thing is that if you've noticed, a lot of these, actually all of these forecasts are in reference to UTC time or Zulu time, which is kind of a pain in the butt to go and convert it back to local time. Um, so if you go onto the airport facility directory, I wish I got a photo of this in my slideshow, but if you go onto the airport, the chart supplement, basically, yeah, I forgot they renamed it. So if you go onto the chart supplement at the top, it'll say like UTC minus like 7 or -8, depending on what region you are. That means that to get to local time, let's see. So for our example here, it's coming on the second day of the month at 4:53 Zulu. So if I went on to the chart supplement and saw that like, oh, we need to, it's like UTC -8, it would mean that we would need to convert this to local time. We would subtract 8 hours from it, which I hate doing that math, but that's how you would find that information. Oh, and then if anyone wants to screenshot this, it's really helpful for decoding the TAFs. I think this is the same for TAFs and for METARs. So if you get any weird like codes, like for example, haze makes sense, but FU makes no sense for smoke. Don't know why they chose that one. So go ahead and study that. Next I have pyreps. So pyreps are easy to understand. Or they're just like basically memos, like pilots saying like, hey, I've experienced this here. And there's two types of pyreps. So if you see here, there's a UA and then there's a UUA. So UA means that it's a routine pyrep. And then if you ever see anything that's a UUA, that means that it is a like urgent pyrep, meaning that like, oh shoot, that was like really scary weather or not my favorite. So usually the pyreps are for things like turbulence that people have experienced or icing or wind shear. But I have seen pyreps for like interesting things like ducks or yeah, I've seen some really funky pyreps. My favorite was someone submitted a pyrep because they saw a duck. If anyone has any other good pyrep stories, please let me know. Also for whoever just thanked me for the chart, you're welcome. Thank you. But anyways, how to read the pyreps. This is just on ForeFlight. You have a little overlay where you can see where people reported pyreps. So it's saying where it happened. So I think this was like, I want to say Ontario Airport. I could be wrong. The UA is saying that it's an or a routine pyrep. And then it's saying over BNG VOR. The time is 3:36 Zulu. It happened at flight level 11 or flight level 11, which you would just add 2 zeros, so it would be 11,000 feet. And then this got cut off, but it would say TP for type. And this is a really, really important thing when you're reading pyreps to know what type of aircraft reported the pyrep. Because for this example, it's a Boeing 737 reporting moderate turbulence. So if a 737 is experiencing moderate turbulence, it might be a little more significant for a small Cessna. So I use pyreps a lot if I'm like, once again, trying to figure out like if people are experiencing icing or if it's a gusty day and I'm trying to see if people are experiencing wind shear. A really fun game, if you guys are ever bored, is if you look at the Reno airport in Reno, Nevada, every time I go there, they have some sort of pyrep reported. So it must not be a very fun airport to fly into. But it also can report like if pilots are saying like, oh, we broke out of the clouds at 800 feet. It's really good for like figuring out where the ceilings are. Of course, use the TAFs and the METARs, but it kind of is nice sometimes to use pyreps to see if there's like really low ceilings that pilots are experiencing. Also, if you guys have never reported a pyrep before, it's kind of fun. If you're on with flight following, it's super easy to like, the other day I reported like moderate turbulence, or you could even report like, oh, sky is clear, no turbulence experienced, and then they'll submit a pyrep for you. It's super easy. Cool. And then I think I'm almost at the end, guys. Thanks for sticking with me. So the next observation is a surface analysis chart, and this probably went over a couple slides back. So the surface analysis chart is what's currently happening. So it's a snapshot of all the weather fronts and pressure systems that are happening across the US, whereas the prog chart is a forecast of what's expected to happen. So once again, it's like still shows like the isobars, so you can figure out if there's expected to be strong winds. And you can see fronts and pressure systems. So high pressure, low pressure. I think this was from yesterday. So let me see. Yeah, nothing huge going on. One thing to note about the surface analysis chart is that I don't think that it shows precipitation. So don't use it to figure out precipitation. Okay. And then my last little part of this presentation was going to be discussing how you can get weather updates in flight. So let's say that you're flying along and you see like the clouds starting to get a little bigger or your visibility dropping. This is how you could figure out in the air what the weather is doing. So one thing you can do is call up a flight service station. And how you would find this frequency is you would look for like this little box. So here's an example. It's Sacramento RCO or remote communications outlet. And you would contact or call up the flight service station on the radios. Usually 122.2 is the universal frequency for, or at least the nationwide frequency for flight service stations. But sometimes every once in a while they'll be on other frequencies. But you can call them and ask for a weather update. I've also had it before. There was one time when we were getting the in like Southern California, and we're in Northern California, but we were getting some like weird unforecasted weather, I think due to the hurricane. So there's one time a student and I were doing like a night cross country, and it was forecasted to be completely clear. Like we got a weather briefing, but we started to see like some lightning in the distance and we couldn't tell how far it was because it was dark. And we were on with flight following. So we called up ATC and asked them like where the precipitation was, like if it seemed to be moving. And that was really, really helpful for us. It should be considered though that if you get ATC weather updates, like for precipitation or yeah, basically precipitation, that's what they can help you with. Or if they're getting any like reports of weird weather, just be aware that if ATC is really busy, that service is on like a work permitting basis. So if ATC is really busy and you want a weather update, flight service might be a better option. Another option that you have is if you have like ADSB, ADSB in your plane, you might be able to receive radar updates on your iPad. So radar updates show precipitation and the level of precipitation. So I use that a lot, especially if I'm flying IFR. I think it's called FISB. And that's really useful for seeing like if I'm going to run into little rain cells. One thing to note though is that the radar is not like real time. It's delayed up to, I want to say like 15 minutes, kind of depends. But just keep in the back of your mind that if you're looking at radar, it might be like old information. So you might be going into a cell that has like popped up since then. But I think that is all of the information I have. Wow, I am really good at keeping these presentations exactly an hour without trying to, but that worked out. Does anyone have any questions or comments coming into it or before we head out? Does anyone have any like general flight questions that don't even relate to weather? No. Cool. I'm reading your chats now real quick. Okay, awesome. Oh, you guys are so nice. Oh, this makes doing these very worth it. Thank you guys. And wait, was there one person I thought I saw that has a check ride scheduled coming up? I know Sherry, you have a check ride scheduled, right?
Yeah, I have one on May 30th.
Oh, that's exciting. Okay,
Yeah,
congratulations. I'm
thank
sorry
you.
I went to Mexico and then lost the text that you sent me. If you can send me a new text so it pops up on my phone again, I'll send
Yeah.
some new flight instructor phone numbers.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Okay, well, thank you
Thanks
guys.
so much. Have a great night.
Yeah, thanks for attending all of these. You're like a trooper. Okay.
Okay,
Well,
good night.
bye. Okay, have a good
Bye.
night, everyone. Thanks for attending. Okay. See ya.
Thank you.
Bye. Thanks. Mm.
Bye.
Sorry, I'm trying to figure out how to end it actually. Oh, there we go. Nope, there we go. Okay.